everyone. In just a second, I'm going to be introducing author Kristen Cusick Lewis, and we are going to be talking about her brand new book that is right here. Half of What You Hear, I almost choked. Half of What You Hear came out December 31st. I love this book. You know what? She's being compared to Liane Moriarty, and she deserves that. Okay, so I can't wait to talk to her, everyone. And here she is.
Hi, everyone. I am so excited this morning because I am speaking with author Kristen Cusick Lewis about her brand new book. Came out at the end of the year called Half of What You Hear. And you guys are all looking at the cover. Thank you so much, Kristen.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be talking with you.
Oh, this is such a great book. I love this book so much. I just finished the last chapter this morning.
That's
I
great.
saved it.
That's great. That is great.
I know. I was reading it late last night, and then I was like, okay, just save part of it, just save the end, and because this book is being compared to Liane Moriarty. That must be so exciting for you.
Oh, it's thrilling. It's absolutely thrilling.
And
it's a little. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's a little bit. It's a little bit of a departure from my last book with the suspense element. So while I was writing it, I wasn't sure how that would go over. So I am just thrilled with the comparison and the
Yeah, and when I saw that comparison, it was before I read the book. But as I was reading it, I was like, yeah, because I love her and I've read, almost everything she's written. But I was like, oh my gosh, you so deserve that because that was exactly what I was thinking of as I was reading it. And the one question that kept popping up in my mind as I'm reading it, because if I could talk to her, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So I'm like, what, I'm going to ask Kristen because she's doing the same thing. There are two main characters, basically, but the characters that you're introducing along the way, and I think this is why you got the comparison, is that, it's so hard to relate to a lot of characters, but you do it so well. And I think that's one thing she did well. And, that you could feel like you know them. Sometimes writers, they'll introduce other characters, minor characters, and you're not that invested in the minor characters, but you did such an amazing job bringing them in and giving them a personality. So how hard is that to write?
It's tricky. It's tricky. For me, everything all of the novels that I've written so far, the three that I've written have really been character driven, and that really is the thing that drives the story for me, and it's the thing I think about before I even think about plot, when I'm thinking about a book. And with this book, I really was interested in writing about, I just had the idea of a town in my head. And so I knew I wanted there to be a lot of moving parts and a lot of exterior action and a lot of people interacting with each other. And so it was tricky trying to figure out how to do that without it being confusing, without because I know often when I read a book, if there are too many people, I have trouble keeping track of who's who and who belongs to who. And, So I really tried to focus in on the two main characters, Bess and Susanna, and then Bess's family. And I think because I tried really hard to, particularly I'm thinking of Bess's mother-in-law, Diane. I tried to, who's a bit of a pill. I really tried to make those people feel full-fledged with the details about who they are, and not just have their stories be kind of reactionary, if that makes sense, and the other characters reacting to them, but also make them sort of have their own motivation and their own reasons for behaving in the way that they do, whether that behavior is good or bad.
Right. And so when you're making notes and when you're creating all of these characters, do you have to really pay attention to where they are?
I do. Yeah, I do. And I have a really good memory for character traits and details. Where I really have trouble is with dates and when things happened. So with this book, which jumps around a little bit, I really have to be careful when I'm writing about, okay, so if they had these kids then that means this happened then, and they've been together this long, and so it was that I make while I'm writing, I make sort of a master reference document that I will refer back to, and that helps a lot. So, yeah.
Well, I just thought you did such a great job of giving every character a voice and that no matter where you found them in the book, like their voice stayed the same.
Oh, thank you.
So
Thank
like
you.
you knew who they were. And that's
Thank you.
tricky. I mean, not a lot of people can do that. And, you know, I think that's tricky for a writer to stay with that same, you know, like you can almost hear them talking like Diane, like, you know.
Yep. Yeah.
So you can almost hear them speaking. And I was like cheering you on yesterday as I'm reading it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Oh, you did so good with this. You know?
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I have a really close friend who's a psychologist, and she was talking to me one day about my work, and she said, what you're doing, it sounds kind of like you do what I do, you know, like, which was a big compliment, but I do feel like it's a little bit like, even like acting when you're writing a character. And I will, in the early stages, I will write, you know, a lot of backstory stuff that never makes it into the book, but helps me figure out who the people are. Things like, writing long journal entries as the character, that kind of thing. And I think that helps me get the voice right.
Oh, you know what? That definitely helps. And I think for new writers and any of the new writers who are listening, like I've heard that from writing coaches that they'll tell the writers to do that. And then I hear writers say, oh, that just takes so long. And that's just so, you know, like if it's not going to be in the book, do I have to take the time to do that? And, you know, so I'm glad you said that, because I do think even though it seems like it's extra work, it really does pay off in the end.
For me, it helps, especially for stories like mine that are so driven by the characters. I think it's really important to make them as believable as possible. And seem full-fledged. So.
Well, I love telling authors when I find it, you know, like their strengths, like what that was. And that to me was definitely your strength.
Well, I appreciate that, because when I'm sitting alone at my desk for hours on end, it doesn't feel like that. But that's
I know. It can be lonely. It can be a lonely business.
Yes, it can. It can.
Okay, so everybody's looking at this cover. I love the cover. I love the colors. You know, I love the red door.
I do too. Yeah.
And the title. Like, I think it's all like the packaging of it was just perfect.
Thank you. Yeah, I got the cover, the designer who did the cover just did a beautiful job with it. I absolutely love it. When we went through the cover options, I think we had 4 different designs, and the red just popped. I mean, there was a blue door and a yellow door, and then they had, some doors that were open, some that were closed. So I think that the door is sort of half open. It kind of gives that sort of suspenseful feel, like, ooh, what's going on in there?
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I think for, you know, the gossiping thing in the whole, you know, realm of the book, like the different characters, it's like, you know, like you're sneaking in, like you're going into the house. I don't know. There's something about that.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
I love those short chapters when you have like the different town people like just gossiping.
They were so fun to write. Thank you. Yeah, they were really fun to write. And I think that really helped sort of give us, I wanted the town to really show through. So I think that helped. That was a good tool to get that.
Okay, so we'll just talk a little bit about, we don't do spoilers, so we'll just talk a little bit about the story. You open it up with the prologue and with Susanna's car accident, and Susanna is also, you know, a second, I would say another main character in the book, and I love that because I didn't know like what was going to happen from there. You know, you kind of take us through that, and then of course, you know, then we get to find out way more about that car accident. But I love that opening of that. Was that always going to be your first part?
No. So it actually, so when I wrote my first draft, which I try to write a first draft as quickly as possible because I really hate that part. And for me, the first draft, the analogy I always use because it seems the most apt is it almost feels like if you were a ceramic artist and you're just getting the clay out on the table. That's what the first draft feels like to me. Like, just get it out there, get something to work with. You know, like, doesn't matter what it looks like, just get it out there. And the prologue I wrote, so the first draft that I wrote, Susanna and her husband were living in Gray Hill, so it's different than, that's not a spoiler, but, and Beth, the other main character, was like a young, like college-aged woman. That was the first iteration, and it changed dramatically from there. So it wasn't until probably the third draft that I remember I was sitting out in my backyard I had a screen porch, and I was sitting back out on the screen porch, and I wrote that scene that became the prologue, and thought, I have something here. And that, it just kind of happened organically. I didn't mean for it to happen the way that it did, but
No,
I love that prologue. So thank you.
Yeah, I absolutely love the prologue. And the character Beth, I mean, you live in DC, so it was, you know, fairly, and I've lived in DC. I love DC. I was just there actually really recently. I don't get to come down very often, but I loved reading about her prior life in DC. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so I grew up here and then was gone. I lived in Massachusetts and New York and North Carolina, and moved back to the area after being gone for about 20 years, 4 years ago, and got back into it. And it's a fun place to write about because there are these, it's this sort of like striving sort of, feeling in the air sometimes among people. And it's a real, it's a real sort of hard charging kind of a feeling, especially when you move here from, I moved here from North Carolina, which was so laid back. So when I moved back, it felt that was kind of a shock to the system.
It is absolutely a culture shock there. Yeah. I mean, you think of this tiny little, it's not big. It's not.
I know. But, it packs a punch. Yeah.
It packs a punch. I worked at a huge law firm there.
Oh, wow.
And I had moved from California. I'd lived in California for a couple of years. And, I got the job pretty easy, but the first day I show up in I didn't realize like a very laid back outfit. Yeah. And I walked in, and it was colorful. And this is the 90s too.
Yeah.
Still, I got pulled in and was like, you're not going to win.
I know. Even still, it's unbelievable. I sleeveless dresses are even kind of looked at, it's crazy.
We can wear, but black is the color. Black, gray,
It's crazy.
Very conservative.
Yeah. So it works for Beth, like moving to this small, laid-back community because, she's coming from this, quite a contrast from what she came from, which is so buttoned up and so much protocol and so many rules, and that's fallen away. And she's really sort of stuck, like, who am I now?
Yeah, what do I do? I loved her so much.
Thank
she
you.
She was amazing. So let's talk future. Like, are these characters done? Are you like, is this?
I don't know. I read the book again yesterday, to be honest with you, because I have a bunch of events coming up related to the release. And so I reread the book, and I got to the end, and I thought, maybe I want to keep it. Because it's not a cliffhanger exactly.
No.
But it definitely leaves the door open, not to reference the cover again. I didn't mean to do that, but pun intended.
Well, that's kind of what I thought. Like, some books you read and you realize that that's it, like that's the end of it. But this book, I was like, you know what? I kind of want to see what happens now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I definitely could see myself moving forward with it. The book that I am working on, the next book now, and it's not related to this, but I'm not saying no, that's for sure.
Oh, good.
So,
good.
Yeah.
Because I love, we find ourselves so attached to these. Once you get to the end of the book, you're like, I'm so attached to these characters. Now I want to see. And the way you ended it, I'm like, I wonder what she did that like that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, so for everyone, before I let you go, your next, so you said you're writing it. When do you think that'll be out?
I don't have a publication date yet, but I hope it'll be within the next year or two, top.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm excited about it. It's also set in Arlington, Virginia, which is where I live. And it's about a woman who her background is she's a psychology professor at Georgetown University, but she's sort of on accident become one of these happiness gurus. She did a TED Talk that's exploded. So she's become a happiness guru, and she's written this best-selling book about happiness, and she has bazillions of followers on social media, but the truth is that her life behind the scenes is falling apart. She's not so happy. So
I love that.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to write about current things because it becomes so not current quickly.
Yes.
But I do like when I read it, it's tricky. So I give you a lot of credit for that because it is tricky. The social media thing, which seems like it just changes daily, and
Yes, I know.
But then when you're reading it and it's relatable, and it's like like you said, the TED Talks and all that stuff, like that's so relatable right now. So.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I had to be careful with that and half of what you hear, because when I talked about Bess's former job as a White House social secretary, I didn't want to tread too closely to current events. So I tried to keep that, just for that exact reason, because you never know by the time people read the book
Right.
how it's going to translate. So, yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank
Everyone,
you.
I'm going to have all of Kristen's links listed below, along with her Amazon link. You can get the book now, and I am so happy that I found you and that I got to read it, and
Me
I
too.
feel so incredibly blessed. So
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and let me know. I mean, when your next one comes out, you know where to find me, and
Oh,
I will definitely read it.
I will for sure. This has been a real pleasure, and I can't thank you enough for doing it.
Oh, thanks. Have a great
Thank
day.
you. Thanks, you too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Gosh, I could have talked to her all day. Oh, thank you so much, Kristen. I love talking to you. I love this book so much. You heard it right from her mouth. There might be another one of these. I love these characters so much, and she's just so incredibly sweet. Go get this book. She is an amazing writer. When I was reading it, I was like high-fiving her in my head while I was reading it. It's that good. You're going to love it. Amazon link is listed below along with her other links. Please hit like if you enjoyed my talk with Kristen, and thank you everybody for listening.